conspiracy and the truth. This is Unhinged with Madyson Marquette. Yo!
Woo-woo! Okay, if you are just joining us, we must say that anything we say or do here is all for entertainment purposes.
Yes, yeah, the CIA moment. Remember, this is all considered conspiracies, not the truth. But you'd be shocked how many conspiracies end up being the truth. It's still just for entertainment purposes. It's the disclosure, right? We gotta. Oh, it's sad we gotta do that in this world because I don't know. I feel like we've been hitting a nerve lately. Like things have gotten weird.
Oh my gosh, it has. Listen, we're gonna have to talk about some of the weird stuff that's been happening to you, the weird stuff that's been happening to me. Like, listen, you know that you're literally on the right track when like people are starting to get like crazy with you
Yeah,
and
yeah,
different, you know. And you were telling me you were having some weird things going on with your technology. So I'm
yeah.
curious to know about that because you didn't really go into it a lot.
Sure. All right. I get out of training this morning. I come home. I've got a shower. I got to clean after that because you get sweaty, you stink, right? And while I'm in the shower, I
No
can
one can
see my
smell you on
phone.
air.
Oh, still, like trust me, it comes through the speakers, dog. It's nasty.
That's funny.
But I'm in the shower and I can see my phone and stuff in case somebody calls, and I've got my watch right next to it, and then suddenly my watch goes from just having a cool screen on it to it just starts listening. Like
Ooh.
it's doing the weird turn thing, like it's listening, taking dictation, waiting for me to say something, right? And it runs the whole time I'm in the shower that way
Mm-mm.
on the watch.
While
And
you're
my phone's
showering,
while
is the
I'm showering.
camera
I'm
on?
not even. It's just the phone sitting on the counter, right? It's away from me. I can see it, but it's like it's sitting there listening to what I'm saying. I get out of the shower, I pick it up, I look at it, and then it stops. It
Mm-mm.
stopped sitting and
Nope.
listening. So as soon as I hit like that motion sensor, it it stopped listening, and then all of a sudden,
No.
the phone, the watch or something sends up this website that pops up and says, "Would you like to go here?" And this website pops up on my
No.
phone and on the watch, and all it's waiting for me to do is click it. So I don't because I don't know what's going to
Mm-mm.
happen. Like I'm just blown away that it's sitting there listening on its own. Maybe there's some quirk like the steam in the air, and it's thinking I'm touching it to do something, right? Like, but it got weird. Like it's listening.
That creeps me out because I know that that happens. Like, because you know how they were talking about the who was it that invented? I'm having such a blonde moment. My coffee hasn't kicked in. Was it like Steve Jobs that says on all his computers, like with the camera, he puts the tape because
Yeah,
he knows like. I'm like, are you the one that's like hacking it?
yeah,
Because why would you do that? You must know something we don't know. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
And
You know what's funny? Oh, go
what?
ahead.
Well,
I'm
I
just
was just
typing.
no. I was saying with all those smart devices, everything's listening anyway. Like
Oh
your
yeah.
remote's listening to you, your phone's listening to you. We
Oh,
were doing a training one day, and we were practicing like yell 911, like call 911, right? We start yelling that. The watch automatically dialed 911. And it
I
wasn't mine;
believe
it was
that.
someone else's, and it wasn't even on their wrist. And that's the
No,
kind.
oh no, no, no. Okay, you know what's really funny? Okay, because this is true. So someone had posted like, oh, TikTok is a CCP app, and I'm like, well, so is your American-made phone. Well,
Yeah,
anything that any iPhone, any like whatever. And I have a good friend. I hope she doesn't get mad if you're saying this, but I won't use her name. She has an ex-husband, and he's just crazy. Like on another level, and granted, I used to live across the street from them, so I know he's crazy. He constantly calls her, okay, and she is not like tech savvy. She's like in the finance industry, like she's just not like he's calls her all the time. You're hacking my phone. I know you're, and then he calls his kids and like you're hacking my phone, and I'm like, listen. If someone's hacking your phone, it's not your ex-wife and kids. It's probably because you're committing all these crimes and they're trying to
yeah.
track it.
Because
Like,
in order to do that, you've got to have like a level of technology savviness that is like state sponsored, or all right. And I'm pretty sure I haven't clicked on anything stupid. That's the other thing. And I haven't opened any phishing emails. It's just weird that all of a sudden my technology. Oh, and back in the day when I worked at the Conservative Daily, we had drones that were flying up to my windows. that was witnessed by my neighbors who were asking, "Hey, what's with all the drones?"
I believe that. But I believe that also a lot of people hate Joe, so they probably wanted to just hurt him.
Oh, I'm sure we were all on the yeah, we are all targets. But the weirdness is, when you start touching the right nerves, like the
Yes.
weirdness starts.
Yeah. I always hear these like survivors that say, "Oh, I'm on the run, I'm on the run." And I'm like, dude, if they want to find you, it does not matter where you are in this world. They're going to
Yeah,
they're going to find you. Like to live in that state of fear is so crazy to me. To like
yeah,
this is not going to happen. No. No way.
yeah, yeah.
you know.
I know.
Yeah, it's a little cuckoo, but I do believe that they do listen to all of our phones and everything else. I mean, like look at the predictive programming just on like social media. Like let's try it. Let's anyone in the comments that's on Facebook or
Yeah,
anywhere, I guess, because
anyway, yeah.
on Facebook or whatever, like let's mention any random thing that you could buy,
Uh-huh.
macaroni. Watch, we'll start getting a bunch of ads for Kraft
Yeah, yeah.
macaroni and everything else. Like, how do they do that? They have to be listening somehow.
Oh yeah. So it happened when I was live on the air on the Right Guys yesterday. We were talking about Colombia and their drug
Ooh.
trade, and then all of a sudden I look over and it says connect with Colombian singles now. Isn't that
Don't tell your
wild?
wife.
I know,
That's
but
creepy.
it just shows up, and I forgot where it was. It was like on Microsoft service or whatever. That you just click on um,
No,
their
that's
MSN
crazy.
stuff, and it gives you everything, right? The weather, and it starts bringing up Columbia stuff, and I'm like, we're in the middle of a show. Like I just Max said it a couple times, and I might have said it once, right? What device is listening? What's has anybody else experienced this? If you're in the comments and you've seen your devices do strange things, like we should tell somebody. Now that we live in a new era, right, where potentially kids have been trafficked underground in tunnels all over the U.S., right? It's a
Yeah,
new day for who's in charge, and if the stuff is happening, we need to know, right? I mean,
yeah. So I got this email recently. I sent it to a friend of mine, and we were laughing because so I'm in what's called the address confidentiality program. So every state has it called the ACP program. So my address is always protected, like wherever I go. And so this person like sent an email, and it was like, we can see you and here's your address. I'm going to show up. And I'm like, I would love for you to show up at that government building that is supposed to protect my address. I would like to
yeah,
see. Please show up to that. I would love it. And they're like, you need to pay me $10,000. And I was like, is this a new thing? Because this is like the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, if you want to come to my doorstep, I mean, please make my day. I would love to, take my aggression out on some cuckoo.
do not go to her house. Do not challenge her. I do not want any of you getting shot. I don't want you shooting anybody unless you have to.
No pew pews need to come out. Just let them just, look pretty in the house, and that's it.
But that's the reality of what happens when you start talking about uncomfortable subjects.
Yeah.
Because we were, what was it yesterday? I was like, Joe Biden's lost 380,000 children. To put that in perspective, that's like the if you were to go to a small town USA and you were to pick all the kids in that area, in that county, it wouldn't reach that number. You know what I mean? That's
No,
a ton of
not.
kids.
That's because I think that you have Child Protective Services, CPS is involved, and then you have like, so a lot of people post this, the National Anti-Trafficking Hotline. They don't realize is that hotline is connected to the Clinton Foundation.
Wait,
So if
what?
the so the the 1-800 national hotline for anti-trafficking, it's like the main,
Yeah.
look up the national hotline to call in America for anti-trafficking, and that is connected to the Clinton Foundation. The other thing that people don't know either is that Tim Tebow's anti-trafficking line is also connected to the Clinton Foundation. And so of course these kids are missing. Look at the people that are involved in it. Of course they're going to go after them. And every year the percentage seems to be going up of the kids that we rescue come out of child protective services. Why are they just getting kidnapped and then no one like knows what's happening or where they are? Like that's crazy to me. You know that trafficking is bad when the drug and gun cartel start calling the anti-trafficking like organizations that are really doing stuff and saying, hey, this is getting really bad, because in their head they don't hurt women and children, even though they sell guns and drugs. But that's a line that in, and I'm granted, I'm sure there's bad ones in there, but when they're calling and giving us tips, there's something to say about that.
Yeah, yeah. When the bad guys themselves are like, "Hey, we're not in like this is wrong stuff." Yeah, we'll give you drugs, we'll run
Yeah.
guns, but we don't sell kids and women, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like
No.
there's some sort of lines like that. Some of those cartels are crossed, but it's those evil ones that do.
Yeah.
Then they get backed by some pretty big people. I was trying to go to those hotlines. I was just going through the revolving door of like contact stuff, and there's all kinds of 501(c)(3)s that are connected to the same stuff. It goes to
Oh,
one group to the other, like the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Then it goes to an organization called Polaris. I don't
and
even know what that
Polaris
is.
is horrific. Let me tell you, I've spoken a lot about Polaris, and
Really?
when I had like come out of trafficking, and like when I desperately needed help, right? Because listen, when you come out of trafficking, and granted, I do tell my story. A woman helped
Yeah.
me and was amazing, and I just love her to death. And it's the reason I actually love God today, because she showed me that like grace. And but when you don't know like really any like job skill set, you don't know how to act, and you don't know how to make money to where you can go like live on your own, and you're trying to go get help from like these people. Polaris was one of those ones that were like, we can't help you. It's like, where is this money going? If it is someone that is come out of human trafficking and can't get help, where do you go? Where do you go? I wanted to do this a long time ago, but I'm like, this might be a little triggering, so I'm not. I wanted to start calling these like hotlines and say, hey, I need help, and record it and put it out there, because it's like, listen, you're not helping any of these survivors, and you're worth millions and millions of dollars, and it's all like non-taxable, so you can't like trace it. And granted, I yes, I'm against taxes and everything else, but I feel like if you're going to have an organization like this, then you should have to be able to be like, hey, you're not helping anyone. No one can call you like no anti like adult. You're saying you help adults, so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and it's really odd when you go to their websites, and a lot of them have buttons at the top that says like "Take action now" or "Donate," right? Because that's what they want. It's like a really easy way to separate you from your money using this backing of that we rescue people, and they may rescue people. I don't know. I've never looked into Polaris and what they do, but it just strikes you when the first thing they want is your money.
I feel like the only two that I have seen that have helped, and I wouldn't back one of them now, but Love 146. There was a woman that worked there. Her name was, oh my God, what was her name? She's friends with me on Facebook. She was amazing, and she doesn't work there anymore. And then there was like a creepy guy that worked there, and he doesn't, the founder of it. But they used to really help back in the day. And then Cami Baker, wait, did I say her last
Tammy
name? I'm
Baker,
gonna Cam, no, her name's Cami.
Cammy.
She has Global Philanthropist, which she is a 501(c)(3), but I have witnessed them helping pay for rent for like survivors, physically going out and getting them. So I like, it's so funny because I talk so much about the 501(c)(3), and people are like, you're so against it. I'm like, no, I'm not against it, but I've had experiences where I have very strong opinions within regards to
Yeah,
it. That makes sense.
it does. Look,
Yeah.
you just see these organizations. And it's like, are they really getting the help? Are they really doing what they're saying? Are they really putting their money where their mouth is? Like that's
Yeah.
always what kind of scares me about some of these places to donate now. Is like 95% of the money's donated goes to running the operation, and 5%. And I'm not accusing anybody of doing that, nor Polaris. I
No.
don't know what they do. But that's my biggest fear when I donate to these organizations, because I don't know what they do, right? And the
Right.
organizations that do something about this usually can't talk about what they do, right?
And
Because
that's the biggest thing, is like when you're really helping people. I can't tell you where we house these kids and what
no,
we do. And sometimes like I'll go on an extraction, and then like certain things will be on the news. So I'll just, post like the news article of like, here, this was out there. But I'm like, I can't get here and like tell you about it. I'm sure like, Cami from Global Philanthropist, she's the same way. Like she's not going to say, hey, like we're out there and we've saved these people, because these women, like you don't want to go and put them in more harm.
yeah,
So I didn't tell you this. I wanted to wait till we were
what?
on air. So my kids and I had to go to the grocery store today, And I was like, okay, let's just go grab lunch because I got to do this stuff. So we were walking in to grab lunch, and this I'm on crutches still, and so this lady's like screaming at me. I'm like, what? I'm not gonna hobble over to you. You're wanting me to. I know she wants money for something, right? And so she starts talking
Is she
about abuse.
homeless?
No, they had one of those like what tables, like they were soliciting donations, is what they were
Okay, okay, okay.
doing. So my oldest son knows how I am, and he's just like, I'm going inside because he already knows where this might go. So she was like, well, we get backpacks for abused children, and a lot of them only have trash bags. And I said, so where are the abused children coming from? And she goes, well, they call the National Abuse Hotline. And I said, the National Abuse Hotline, again, connected to the Clinton Foundation. I said, so do you know for a fact that if I buy one of these backpacks for you, that it'll go to like the children? Do you know? And she's like, well, I don't know. And I said, I go, do you want, and I go, do you want a job? Like the really saving children? And I said, because what she said to me, I was really annoyed. She said they call the hotline, and then the police and the local authorities go in and take those kids. So I said, so if you right here wanted to call about my children and lie about me, you're telling me that they're going to come and kidnap my kids. I go, how do they know that those kids are abused? What proof do they have that they're abused? And I said, and I'm concerned that this hotline goes again to the Clinton Foundation. And I said, and the Clintons are horrific. And she got all mad, and she was like, I was like, listen, I said, and I said to her, I am not trying to be a jerk to you. I said, you look like you actually really do truly care. I'm like, you have that like spirit about you that you really do like have a passion for what you're doing. And I said, do you want a job really helping kids? Because I'll hire you. And then I said, but I go look to see what you're doing. And I said, are you harming children? I go check and see who you're working for. And is it good? She was so mad. And then when we like
Yeah.
walked out, my youngest, he goes, Mom, that lady is just giving you a dirty look. And I was like, it's letter. I turned around and smiled, waved. I was like, I'm out. But again, it's like you even know that where these hotlines go, and it's so hard because where do you tell people to go? There's not a lot of places they can go and say, "Hey,
I was under the impression that a lot of police jurisdictions don't have resources to start putting on that, and the resources they do usually they're finite, and they don't like some big cities might have it. Some small towns may not have the resources. So even if you do call one of these organizations and they tell the police and they give them a tip, who knows how long it's going to take for them before they even look at it, right? You're talking about a tip. You,
That's right." You're talking about a tip, and then you're saying that all of a sudden, like, how do you know that these are abuse? Because I get a lot of people. I'm telling you, it's weird that are like, I'm going through divorce, and my significant other is trash. And
yeah.
I'm like, no, they're not. Stop it. You're lying. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, okay? But I'm like, you're lying to get a step up in your divorce, and I'm not interested in helping you loved each other at one point. He wasn't a trafficker then. And I am not saying that that cannot happen. I'm just saying that for it to happen on the scale of the people reaching out to me, there's just, I, I don't think so. I think that you're just being toxic.
Yeah, the amount of investigation, it's got to be a crazy world. So if somebody was out, I mean, what are signs that somebody's being trafficked? I mean, you just I wouldn't even know where to start. Like a girl dressed inappropriately or
But even then, like, no. See, what people think is like traffickers are like these dirty people. No, they're like nice neighborhoods, nice restaurants. Like they are playing a part. I think when you start looking at children and you realize, like, okay, I have kids, right? Like, listen, if the kid is like, all my friends have like kids around the same age, and our kids all act the same. Like the way that they are, like just when they get mad, like the things that they do, like it's a very similar thing that kids do, right? But if
sure.
this kid is like just afraid or very pristine or like afraid to talk, you might want to like start watching. And if this kid is like I check the people that are dressed to the nines more than I do like the kids that, because you can't, like, there are low income families and they're not dirty. They're just like, where do they go to get their clothes? They go to, um, oh, what's it called? Like
Sec-
the,
Secondhand stores.
yeah, the secondhand store. Like they're going to secondhand stores and, that a lot of rundown clothes. And if anyone has boys and some girls, like once as they get, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're hard on clothes. So you can't really judge like the way that they're dressed. But I also think you can see if they're malnourished and different things. But there's a difference. Can they not afford food? And you can help in that situation and there's no abuse, or is there abuse going on? I think that's a lot more prominent, like in nice restaurants and different, like nice areas. I think a lot of farm and rural areas as well, because you don't really know what's going on there. I mean, country, like most country, it's a very tight knit. You don't really want to like go into those country areas because they don't know, like, so there's a lot of factors I think it goes into seeing if someone's abused, and you can tell with kids the way that they act and the way they talk and the way, and sometimes kids will say certain things like, you know, adults that are harmful will call your private part something else. And so if they're like saying that someone touched their, and you're like, what are they talking about? They're probably telling you something, because those are like the unsafe adults that will like call it something else. And so they're trying to tell you, does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it disassociates the act of what they're doing into something that's not. It's a
Yeah.
disassociation technique, right? We call it the
Yeah.
jumblies because we don't want to call it the penis, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah, I get that. Wow, that's kind of crazy. Yeah, that's the stuff I always worried about. Like you walk around and you see it, but it sounds like it's a, I hate to say this, a rich person's game, right? Because
It
who
is
else
a
can
rich person's game.
afford to do this stuff, right? So I see what you mean, that you're more worried about the more high end, high society type people than others, right? Because you gotta have the money for those kind of proclivities, which is weird.
Well, look at like all of the celebrities that have done these weird like eating parties and the like wearing, like Lady Gaga wore meat to the whatever awards it was, and it's like, okay, is that even human meat? Did anyone check it like to see what this is? I mean, they're so bored. It's like, this is where the way that America was founded wasn't that there are rich and poor. We were all like prosperous together, and that's where your world is a better world, and a lot of this stuff stops. So, I mean, look how much money they have, so much money that they're so freaking bored. My light just, my light brought.
I thought somebody kicked in the door and I was like, all right, they're going after her right now.
You know,
Save
it's so funny.
her!
I was on a podcast once and the police knocked on my door and it was my crazy neighbor. And so I like opened the door and then she tried to put her foot in my door and I was like, you better get off my property, lady, because you have no warrant. Because I want to give her my name. And I'm like, you don't need to have my name. Get the fuck off my property, you stupid.
Like the moment you cross the threshold, it's a different.
You have
kind
no
of
warrant,
fight.
no reason to be there. Like,
It's time to
make my
go.
day, please. She actually, when I started calling her out on the law, she got really nice. But I told her, you better never do that again, because I will come after you lawfully and like take your badge. What you just did, like, just stop it. Be a good cop, not a policy enforcement officer. Just be a good person.
I think now that's a great segue for our T-shirts. If you guys have not purchased an Unhinged T-shirt, you should, because it's the easiest way to support what we do, and we need your support, because if you're not going to get this message anywhere else. You're just not. So, hey, bring up the website so they can see it. We've got T-shirts on there for you to buy in your favorite sites. We're going to have lots of designs coming. There's going to be a lot of one-off designs that you're only going to get for a little while, so some of these will be limited time. And I can tell you right now that we're tirelessly trying to create these T-shirts for you. So head over there. The website is in the description of what we got going on. Or buy someone else one for Christmas. So T-shirts
or birthdays. And if you want, either our sweatshirts, different styles and different things. I like live in hoodies, so I
couldn't tell. I don't think I've seen you in anything but.
You know what's funny is you like, sometimes I am. Sometimes I like look cute, but I change.
like my wife there. Sometimes I like to look cute, but otherwise I like to feel good.
It's always to be comfortable. Okay, like
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah.
once in a while. But anyway, that is hilarious. So yes, buy the shirt, share them. We would love it. And if you have an idea that you want on a shirt, please send it to us.
Yeah.
We would
Something
love
nice.
to see it.
Right.
I want to put a pew pew on a shirt and like do some kind of funny. We do. I think there are tank tops. Yes. See,
Oh,
this person that wants to wear tank tops probably has like really kick ass body because
I
that's like
know.
the ones
I
that always
know.
wear the tank tops. So they're like skinny and cute, like
Right,
that.
and they're probably like all jacked and beautiful. They look like a Greek statue. And I told my wife once, I was like, I got the body of a god, and she said, "Who, Buddha?" What? That was a good one.
Just,
Then people will be like, "Buddha's not a god." Shut up, Josh.
oh my gosh! Again, but all what's so funny is how many people and their gods that they have. Like it literally is crazy to me. It's like tank top. See all these hotties on here, tank
Yeah.
top girls.
Hey, so speaking of that, have you ever read a book? And I'm not here to push their book, but it's a book called Return of the Gods. I forget the author's name.
Oh no,
And
I wanted to buy that book because you guys told
wow,
me about it the other day, and I
unbelievable.
love to read.
It's unbelievable. Like I read a lot of this eschatology stuff. I made like a promise to myself to read like crazy this year, and I was reading that book, and it talks about how all the old gods never really left. Right? They just changed their marketing, and that's the that in a nutshell. Right? You're still getting these weird groups that want baby sacrifice. Right? You still get organizations that want to open portals, and all those gods just have different names now. I mean,
It
it's
is
trippy.
crazy. Well, that's like a good segue of what you were talking about earlier about the maybe it's not a good segue.
Just go for
In
it.
my head
It's
it was
always
a
a
good
good
segue and
segue.
it's really not. We were talking about the Google, if you do a certain Google and they were writing help where it was in California.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um and so I don't know if you guys haven't heard, but and I think Josh is gonna pull it up so we can add it onto the screen, but it basically there's a bunch of those. Oh my god, why can't they're the Hillary
It's ready.
Clinton like cargo I'm gonna put up
Yeah, bring it up. So,
the bunch of like the cargo. And in here, if you do a Google map search and you type in, what do they have to type in?
I don't know, but if you go to X, right, and you just put in the LA help signs, it's gone viral now, and there's all these. It's in a storage area. Somebody found it. There's ladders that go to some underground stuff, and outside of this facility, there's all these ties and stuff that have been moved to say like help, and it's just pretty crazy because right out in the middle of no, like right here in one of the biggest like yards, like rail yards, it's out there. They've got these crazy help signs, and to have these help signs out there all over, and then these holes where there's ladders going down, it makes you think that there's might be some tunnel system, right?
Oh,
That
for
that's
sure.
going
In
on.
LA,
And and you can take that off the screen now. Here's the craziest part about it is, do you remember El Chapo? I think was his name. He was a drug
yes.
lord in Mexico, right? He moved in so many drugs across the LA border with tunnels that the feds had to start getting into the tunnel business. They just had to.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, I believe that. Weren't we talking about on the show about the tunnels and like how like a lot of celebrities and everything have like the underground? I mean, LA, especially LA, and in anywhere in California that might that well, LA doesn't, but anywhere where it might connect to Mexico is where they would have those tunnels and underground because you can cross those country lines without anyone really knowing.
do you know what years he started building the first tunnels just for his drug
No.
empire? 1980 to 1985. Because
Almost 40 years ago.
absolutely. And at the time,
Yeah.
he was in a drug war with two brothers on the left side, and there was three cartels after the Godfather over whatever Mexican drugs went down. One went through the air. The others were trying to go via road across the borders, which was really hard. And El Chapo goes underground into tunnels. Well, there's been some drug tunnels that they have found that have been deep into Arizona. And you're talking about places where you can build tunnels that are miles long. Who's to say that there aren't tunnels that are directly going into LA because there's a drug trade in LA that's got to be tremendous, right? And
Hey,
they have busted tunnels there. So there's tunnels
well,
all over the place just from the drug trade, right? Which means that tunnels were left over once they were done with it. So they were
yeah,
blown up by the police, quote unquote, blown up and unusable. But how many tunnels
there's
are
no
there?
way because well, yeah, because I live there. You know what I mean? So, yes, absolutely. And you have these like mega churches that are there. Then you have the Church of Scientology, which is there. You have all of these things that can, like, I don't believe that the police, like, the LA and the LA, I think it was who's the main sheriff guy? It's the police commissioner
Of
was
LA.
like so corrupt. This was like years and years ago. He was so corrupt. So like, there's no way that they blew it up. They probably pretended to blow it up, but I think like, we go back, we talked about these fires, like all these fires. It's like, are you just trying to bury evidence? And so like, but here's the thing. If they get away with doing all of this and then like you were saying, he did this in the 1980s and they said they blew it up. Okay. And then here we are 40 something years later, and those tunnels are probably still there. Like, when does like the people at some point not let history repeat itself? Because right now with these fires and everything, it's like burning everything down, and I believe is burning evidence. Like, when are we like, this is stupid, and we're going to stand up and say enough is enough?
Right. Here's the other thing is that those cartels didn't stop making tunnels.
No.
They just made new ones. So there could be miles of tunnels across the border where anything can be railed through because they got professional engineers to build professional tunnels that have an air system, a light system, and a rail system. A system you could easily transport anything through. Tons of drugs. Tons of drugs.
Yes. Well, think about from LA to Orange County to San Diego, right? You go underground. You have because like that's they're next to each other in California, but it is a very like, especially if you get on those freeways, you're staying on the freeway forever. So you go underground, and then you go, TJ is right there. So you go from
Mm-hmm.
LA to San Diego to Tijuana, and boom, your drugs, your guns, your trafficking, everything through there, and you can stop in LA, and then you can stop in Orange County, and then you go stop in San Diego. You stop in each of these like prominent cities, right? Because you can go through richy areas in and do what you need to do, and then go through it. It's crazy.
So the other piece of it is they will take a tunnel and it'll only be X of distance long and then it goes to a warehouse. Then from this warehouse it goes to another set of tunnels, right? And then that goes to another set of tunnels at another warehouse. So there's this weird web of tunnels that are under the southwest for sure. And who's to
Yeah.
say that they haven't done the tunneling in LA to continue to move the drugs through the city? And if that's the case, let's not also forget that there's a booming oil industry in LA.
Oh,
There's lots of buildings that are just covering up pumps, right? There's all
yeah.
kinds of boring equipment. They've done all kinds of tunnels. It's not outside the realm of possibility that there's this huge underground network of vice that is coming from the southern border and has been
Yeah.
coming in, and they can't stop it because it's all underground. Maybe even the kicker is that the Biden administration didn't want to stop it because they seem to know about this stuff. They had the locations of some of these kids they're rescuing right now, and that doesn't mean law enforcement didn't know where they were at. It just means they weren't allowed to enforce. So
But
why
you know
would the
what? What
administration allow that?
bullshit. That to me is they weren't allowed to enforce. No, you're a piece of shit, that officer that's not going to enforce this and protect these kids. You're not in it. You are a part of the boys club, because that's what I believe police officers are. And don't get me wrong, there are great police officers out there, and they do really care about this country and making it better. I believe that. But the majority are policy enforcement officers, and they're just going to go listen to the Biden administration. Here's the other thing. It didn't just start with Biden. This has been
Mm-hmm.
going on with the presidencies for many years. One of the conspiracies I was talking to you about, Josh, was that when Trump's first administration, when COVID happened,
Mm-hmm.
in the DC, there were all of those tents, right? And it was said that it wasn't for COVID patients, that it was for the underground kids that they had found to get them out, and they had never seen the day of light, like the light of day. So they needed to
Mm-hmm.
have the ventilators, because like they haven't seen sun. Sun technically kill them if they've just been underground, and they have to like, I don't know how that works. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not going to pretend to be one, but you know what I mean. So that was what the conspiracy back then was. And it was also said that Melania didn't move into the White House until like they rescued those kids and got the kids out of the White House. Now, is that true or not? Well, I don't know. But that was one of the conspiracies that was back then, and that's why Trump had such an anti-trafficking message in his first message. So,
And we don't think there's not tunnels under DC. I mean, the White House probably
oh, for
has
sure.
multiple floors underneath the ground. That's probably got a tramway, a railway. I mean, there's so much underground in DC that would probably make people's head spins. And there's probably been people who've worked it too, right? That can never talk about it, but it doesn't shock me.
Here's the thing with DC, because I've said this a million times. We're gonna have to do a show on this because, like, but DC sits on foreign land. It's technically a foreign country to America. So they can go do whatever they want in there and not pay any kind of like price of America. So of course they're going to do any kind of underground. And I'm sorry, but then the president can just get away with whatever they want to do to these kids. And then what? I mean, the Biden administration put up that big wall around, was it the White House or like, come on, there's this, if anyone believes in the Jericho walk, I think they should start doing it around DC, because DC needs to fall. Like the level of like this head of the snake of trafficking is there. No, I'm not saying Trump is a trafficker. I'm talking about previous administrations.
Yeah.
Like,
so there's a whole system that's in place there. It's DC. It's its own animal, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is the wild part about
corrupt.
it. And there was something you said that I was going to touch on, and now it's completely escaped me because I was talking about the tunnels and all of that stuff. There's also tunnels at the northern borders because drug traffickers are moving drugs in between USA and Canada. So the phenomenon is up there as well, right? People would be shocked at the number of underground things that are out there, right? And this is why when people say they were covering the evidence up in LA with the fires to hide the tunnels, I mean, is there a kernel of truth to that now? Because we know the drug cartels have done it, and they continue to do it to this day. Are all those tunnels closed? I mean, has anybody ever gone back and said, this is the tunnel that was found, and actually watched them close it, actually watched them blow it up? And some of these tunnels are miles long. So does that exist? I mean, can we go and find these tunnels? That'd be the other part of it, right?
Yeah. That's the question of the hour, because listen, they show us on the mainstream media, and with Project Mockingbird, they can show us whatever they want, and like people are just going to believe it because it's on MSN or NBC or CNN or whatever it is. And it's like, no, come on. Like, why don't you have people like that can be there in the public, that they are allowed to record with their own personal cameras? But they're not going to do that, because to me, I don't really think they're doing it. I really don't think they're really blowing it up at all. It's not happening.
No, and it would be easy just to, on paper, say it's closed. You'd only need a couple of people to go down there and make sure that the tunnel blew up, right? I think that there's this crazy underground network of child trafficking going on in a lot of these tunnels.
Well, I'm telling you there is, because I've been in those tunnels. Like, you know what I mean? We were talking about this before. Like, you go in and you're like, what am I seeing? Because it's a different world. The things that they do is like so beyond human imagination. Like, most people don't think to that level of demonics, right? And evil. Yeah. So then you're like, and of course they're doing it underground because they don't want to get caught and they don't want people to see like what's going on. So yeah, there is a whole underground world. That's where it's like teams like mine and other teams that are doing this. It's just like, man, I get why people only last like a few years in rescuing these kids, because it mentally wears on your psyche for like, you're like, what am I saying? You have dreams about it. You're like, what? Like, you're like, there are two alternate realities right now, and it is very vastly different. And what's really crazy too is you have the underground tunnels with the or the human trafficking. Then you have this world that we're in, and there's still human trafficking. It's like, man, at what point does everyone say the evil, like, we've had enough? We're done with the gaslighting of America. We're done with the domestic violence of America, of what's being told to us. And we start like demanding it. People always ask me all the time, well, why isn't this on the news? Or why isn't this? And I'm like, why aren't you demanding it to be? Like, why does it all have to fall on certain people? Why aren't you saying, Like like the clone thing. Are you? Let me ask you, Josh. Are you
Hmm.
really okay that there are clones walking around? If this is the truth, and that clones are walking around, and that we don't know about it, and they're running our country, and they're just doing all of this stuff, making decisions for us. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not okay with that. To me, I think that's BS.
I mean, if the clones thing is real, like that one really, really, really bugs me because it would be hard. Like the technology level involved to make that happen would be earth shattering,
Yeah,
right? And like then I would start thinking about industries of growing organs and stuff like that, like growing a duplicate for you to be the organ donor.
yeah,
So yeah, like that. I didn't think Joe Biden was the original Joe Biden that we saw. Like the ears
he was
lobing
not.
was always different. Like it was obviously somebody in like some sort of makeup. But yeah, if I don't want there to be clones, I'm going to start with that. But Kanye West has come out and said they tried to clone me, right?
I think that is a clone. That does not look like Kanye West. The way that his face was, he had a very prominent, like the way his face.
Yeah.
There's just no way. And then he's going out everywhere with that thing on it. Like, come on, there's something
He
going
got
on there.
reprogrammed
Something
when they
off.
made him go blonde, right? And he disappeared for a
Yeah,
while, and he came out reprogrammed. He was something different. The same
for
thing with Lil
sure.
Kim. Like they all go through
Yeah.
it. Britney Spears, remember when she shaved her head and she was having all that disassociative stuff? I felt terrible for her. And the
Yes.
problem is she's putting it on internet for all of us to see, which
That
is,
right.
hey, I
And
want to
but
go
see,
back.
that's why they do the conservatorships,
Mm,
because anyone that has a voice, they are like they want to make them look crazy. See, this is why
yeah.
like think about if someone was trafficked through these tunnels and that's their life that they live, and then they came out and said, which like who's going to believe them? No one, because they
Yeah.
are going to make them look crazy, even though that most likely they are 100% telling the truth. They're going to make them look crazy. Look what they do to me already. The hate that I get in the media alone, and the trolls and everything else, like just from like trying to talk about these churches and the porn industry and how it's all connected. Like, look how crazy that is, and how crazy they make me try to look.
At the beginning of the show, we were kind of talking about how 340,000
Yes,
kids were missing. 340,000. The Trump administration has claimed to have found or recovered up to 80,000 of those kids, or at least they know where they're at, right? That leaves 240,000 children missing. Now, where do you hide all these kids? How do you move all these kids? Like they're either in trucks where they're hidden in the floorboards, they move them around in vehicles, or they have these incredibly covert tunnel systems
I
because that's where
think,
you keep
and
them.
I think when you have that amount of mass children missing, that they have taken their life. They've done the Adrena, you know what it is. Like
The drip.
that's the drip. Yeah, like that's what they are doing, because you can't like yeah, it's the underground. I think it's a little bit of both, right? The underground, and then the kids are just, but how in America, how big America is. And then think about even like the national forest, and then like even in Colorado, like the mountains, like if there can be tunnel systems and all of these things, like there would have to be a lot of teams going out and just doing that. And I don't think there's enough people in the world that are willing to do it.
No, no, which is the kind of sad part. So you got to start fighting the battle in a different way, right?
Yeah.
How do you make something like that go away? You've got what appears to be a multi-billion-dollar business because that's what they've turned it into, and it needs money. Like, who's funding this? Who's allowing the banks to move the money? Is it an all cash business? Like, the IRS has never seen this stuff.
But
There's
the
never been
IRS is a
busts
part
of
of it.
money. Yeah, I mean, the CIA, are they even aware of such a thing going on? Are they included in it? Because we talked about in my other show that, what happens now that cartels are considered terrorist organizations, and you might have individuals that have been bribed within the
Yeah.
American system by those organizations. So they are directly being funded by terrorism. So how far does that go? How deep is it? Is there agencies that have been bribed? I mean, it's deep, right? I'm thinking it's completely corrupt.
Oh, 100%. Think about it. This came out right years ago about the Biden and the missing kids, and then I think it's now coming to the forefront again because Trump's back in office. Think about, no one kept Biden accountable. No one
No.
even. like, I'm sorry. America's the biggest resistance in the world, and we just sat back and we're like, let's listen to the stupid like Michael Jaco, like David Rodriguez, like let's listen to them and not do anything and sit on our butts. Why they all got rich and they're all laughing to the bank, and now they turned around and they hate Trump now and everything, but they got rich off of it and didn't tell America to like rise up. But when you think about the IRS, and if you think about America was a gold and silver backed country,
Yeah.
the Federal Reserve notes, yes, they can trap, like they're trafficking and laundering this money. They're also doing it through, again, these churches, the 501c3, everything else. So, like, if we're gonna have to do the conspiracy, that we'll have to do a different one, but I'm just gonna mention it real quick. The Martin Luther King, right? He wasn't great.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I was going to mention. Okay, cool. Keep going.
Okay, Malcolm X was the true, like, he was like, I'm gonna fight and I'm gonna do a revolution. If anyone made change back then, it was Malcolm X. It was not Martin Luther King at all. And so, like, who killed Malcolm X? Who brought Malcolm X to the forefront? The preacher did, to kill Malcolm X. So go ahead, what you're gonna say, so you don't forget.
Well, Trump just released the JFK, the RFK,
Yes.
and the MLK files, right? And what I think they're
Yeah.
going to find out is that JFK had a proclivity to have lots of girls over. And they were talking about the way to usher them in and out because people have made claims that JFK was moving these pretty girls through the tunnels. And the people are like, well, what do you mean through the tunnels? Right? There's going to be so much stuff that comes out. That's why they haven't released it because it's going to be embarrassing. I don't think there was a mass conspiracy to have him assassinated. I think what finds out is people realize that JFK was a womanizer, you know?
Yeah,
I think RFK probably was killed in a really, really set up way. That's what we'll find from the RFK
for
because there's
sure.
questions about that one. And MLK is going to come out that he was quite the womanizer himself, being
Yeah.
set up by the FBI, right? And to have that information collected. And that's the thing, it just becomes embarrassing, right? To their legacy and what they mean. That's why they never released it. But we're going to. So, how far does this go back? If JFK was running pretty girls in and out of the White House in 61, 62, and 63,
Yes.
in
That
the tunnels? What does that mean?
But see, this is what I'm talking about, like, Josh, where America and our elections, they're selected and not elected. Why? Because this trafficking and these tunnels have been going on. So you have to have someone in that club to keep that secret. The question on everyone's mind, okay, is Trump a part of that club? Or is Trump the person that's going to come in and really tear it all down? Right?
Yeah.
Time's going to tell on that. I am not saying one way or the other, so please no one twist my words. But that's where it's going to like time's going to tell of like, okay, let's see what he's going to do here.
Yeah.
Especially like think about, I mean, people look at Martin Luther King as this hero, right? And Malcolm X doesn't really get any. I mean, people know of him because we learned about him, but they don't put him as like a leader in the forefront of a revolution that was back then that was really trying to stand up to the
Yeah.
system. I mean, that's kind of sad when you think about it. It's going to like tear people down when they find out the truth.
Yeah, and it'll be an interesting world that we're looking at because there's going to be inconvenient truths that are going to go way back and they're going to reach
Yeah.
some of the deepest halls of government. I think Trump, regardless if he takes a stance on it or not, the moment he made the cartels a terrorist organization, he set something in motion. Because now the tier one operators are going to be out there, and everyone's like, "Oh, the cartels aren't ready for the shitstorm that's coming." That's what they all say, and that's true. Because the tier one operators will take them out. What they're not ready for is when the tier one operators do their job and what they find when they're there. Because
Yeah.
now all these things get uncovered, and they're going to
Yeah.
become a public record. And then once
Yeah.
that happens, it's going to be deep. It's going to be in every state. It's going to be in every city. It's going to be across the border. And that is why I think he doesn't even have to take a position. All he has to do is start the gears of unraveling the truth. And that's what we're going to get from it.
But that's what I really hope where America starts the revolution and stands up. Because if Trump is setting the stage for us, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to let history repeat itself, right? And then we continue to become slaves of America, or are we going to stand up and we're going to start the revolution, right? Like, I mean, I guess time is going to tell, but I'm hoping that America rises up. I mean, in 1776, it was only 2% that won the Revolutionary War. And we're still we are enslaved to Britain again. We have to free ourselves from the crown. So
So what happens? All right, so here's the next hypothetical, because now let's say these organizations are starting to be unmasked, right? The lid's coming off. They become the wounded animal,
Yeah.
especially the cartels and stuff like that. So my biggest worry is that, you know, until we get a lid on it, it might get like kinetic with those groups out there because they will be the ones to start it off, right? You're talking about billions of dollars. You're talking about
Yeah.
powerful people wanting to make sure that they stay in power. So my biggest advice to Americans is to go out and train, learn
Yes.
how to watch, be ready for things that are going to go sideways because this is just starting, right? And they're going to
Yeah.
try to keep as tight as possible because I think the administration is going to take the lid off this stuff. It's just no choice. It's what happens when they become the terrorist organization. You're going to see helicopters in the skies in places you didn't realize. You're going to see
Yeah.
tanks moving. Like there's some weird stuff going on in the U.S. and we've been infiltrated by something. And the slow unmasking begins. It happened on the 20th. It happened 8 days ago.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the whole thing is someone would sound like someone was knocking. It would just be my kid.
I thought your phone started listening.
Yeah,
I'm gonna check my
it turned
watch.
on, No. I think that there's a lot going on. I think there's a lot of good. I think there's a lot of bad. I think it's going to be up to all of us on what we decide. I mean, even though I know that there's these underground like tunnels, and I said that there's two parallel worlds, I also think in this world that we're in, there is a world of where we can choose the promised land and the peace and the anti-trafficking, or we can what, bud? I'm on the thing. Can you use yours, please? I'm on a
Yeah.
podcast.
Live radio, gang. This is what you get.
I'm sorry, my little one. I was like,
It's okay. It happens. Where were you at? Yeah.
I don't want anyone seeing because some of y'all are cuckoo or cocoa puffs, and you are
Oh
not
my
allowed to see what
God.
my
Yeah.
kids
Don't.
look like.
Don't.
No,
For the love of God,
like
don't.
that. I have it in. So,
Yeah.
no. So I think that we can choose peace, or we can choose. We can choose what we. I think that's what I was saying.
Yeah. And
I lost my train of
it
thought.
makes me really wonder all those pardons that Biden threw on the way out. What those people were pardoned for. Like there were some people that were pardoned for nonviolent acts, and there were some people that were pardoned for violent and nonviolent acts. Like Fauci. Like what was so violent he needed a pardon for?
Well, you know what's funny about that? I'm gonna make you think for a second, everyone watching. Biden is the CEO of the corporation and pardoned him as the CEO of the corporation. If Trump does restore the republic, they're not pardoned. They can go under the Nuremberg trials and be executed for their crimes against humanity. Just saying.
Yeah, if it was considered treasonous, right? I mean,
It is
so that's a
treasonous.
whole. It's some different stuff to start thinking about. What did they do? When did they do it? When did they know it? Right? When did they know that there was all those kids missing? And when did they know they weren't going to do anything about it?
Yeah.
2020, the year he was in, 21, 22, 23, 24. And I'm watching some of those videos that they had just all the adoption stuff that you usually have to do, like the bi-monthly visit where somebody comes
Yeah.
and checks on you, we're completely just thrown to the wayside. They were putting people, some of these kids that were coming across the border just with family members, quote unquote, that never had any documentation. There's no evidence these kids ever actually crossed the border because there were no cameras watching it. Because how many of the surveillance stuff did Biden turn off? Like, you want to talk about if there was a market for children, the border, the open border was the perfect way to just move people across. They walked themselves, right? Like,
Oh,
think
absolutely.
about
And
that.
the border patrol were like, because I remember I was at the border multiple times, and the border patrol would get in our way, and we were sitting there. I mean, literally pew pews drawn. We're like, we're ready to die today. Are you? Because you're not going to stop there. Like the Biden administration told us to stand down. I don't care what they told you to do. We're not a part of your regime, so we're going to go and save these kids. So all of us are going to die today, or you're going to just leave us alone and go let us do it. That's crazy to me that you're going to go listen to this, and you're looking and seeing these kids either like get harmed in, like you can see them, or you're just allowing this crazy to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
it to me, it was like a whirlwind of like, is this really happening right now? Like, are we at war with the border patrol that is supposed to be protecting our border? That's crazy to me. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and then one of the commenters in there said that the kids were being used for experimentation. I don't disagree with that. Like, there's
Yeah.
240,000 kids missing. Where are those? Are they alive? Where are those bodies if they're not? Right? You just can't hide a city's worth of children. Do you know how big the pile of bones would be? You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like, where did
Where are
all
the
these parts
parents, Josh?
go?
Where are the loved ones of these kids? Something's happening to my kid. I'm burning down the world to
Well,
find, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
what,
yeah.
where, it doesn't make sense. Did they get paid off? Did they sell their kid? Like,
Well, that's the thing.
what
If
happened?
they really are coming from South America, some of these people just gave cartels money to get their kid over the border to give them a better life, and then the cartel holds them for ransom once they're over, and once they get the
Yeah.
ransom, they kill the kid anyway. So
Yeah.
what? There was people that were duped into it, right? There were people trying to send their
Yeah.
kids to a better life, but the reason they're not looking is because they know they can't. Who's going to try to make their way from Venezuela to do it? Who's going to come from Argentina? Who's going to come from Peru? Who's going to leave Mexico to cross the border to see if their kid made it? They're not because they sent them anyway. They walked over by themselves. Did
Yeah.
these kids actually have parents? Were there orphanages? They just completely opened up and pushed them all out? I mean, and that may have been the administration saying, yes, send us all those kids.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they were. I mean, if you have an America where it's supposed to be like the land of the free and the dream, right? And then you have parents in other countries that are like, "Hey, go over," and America and this administration is promised to like take care of you. When that administration is the head of the snake at that point in time,
Yeah.
like, that's just crazy to me.
I say we burn the whole thing down and we start all over. 'Cause that's what the
I
Constitution tells us we're supposed to do. But I don't want the FBI knocking on my door, right? Like
well,
sedition or something crazy.
when the First Amendment fails, the Second Amendment comes into play. What is happening right now is such a major regime, and you see it everywhere. Okay, the court systems are trafficking in persons, Part B, for profit. Profit. Every court case, even criminal court cases, they're making money off. So they make money off of charging you, and even though you could be innocent. In every that's in every state. That's not just in like one state. These prisons are privately owned prisons. They
Yeah.
have $2 million life insurances on each inmate that's in those prisons, man or woman. So if they die, who's getting rich? Like, it is just crazy. This is where America needs to get rid of the Federal Reserve notes, and they need to go back to silver and gold back standard, because the federal, like, listen, if they can just print money, then why can't they just print money and make sure like certain things are paid? Why are we in such debt if you can just print money? Like, doesn't make sense. So
Yeah. Well, that's really depressed me for the day. Like I was having a pretty good one until the very end there.
yeah.
Yeah, this is tough.
It is depressing, but you know what? Listen, my message to America is like, we are the resistance. We are the ones that can initiate this revolution. Let's not leave to our kids what they have left to us. Like, you want to stop human trafficking, start standing up. You start standing up and you are protesting. You start standing up and making like these 501c3 pastors accountable that are like evil and demonic. You start standing up and saying, okay, this Biden is a clone. This person, like, you start demanding that we see the right people. And then they're like, oh shoot, the secret's out. And they're going to start, like, you have to do that on a mass scale though. It can't just be like one or two people. Let's do it on a mass scale of people starting to get loud. Use your First Amendment.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that was fun today. I mean, every
Yeah.
time we do this, I just, I learned something new and there's a whole new fear that's set in by the time I'm off.
Don't
I gotta
fear,
find
that's what
something
they
else.
want.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
So, and guys, again, buy our t-shirts. You're gonna love them.
Yes.
They look good on you. They're all unhinged. We're gonna change them all up. We're gonna change them so often they become collector's items. One day you're gonna want
Yes.
yours on your mantle, hanging up like a signed copy. We might even like autograph one, but you got to pay for that because whatever we do with the autograph one, we're gonna help some kids somewhere with it. I'm gonna make sure Madyson does that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
fun the fight. Unfortunately, it all takes money, right?
It,
And to do
it
this, we
really
pay
does.
out of pocket for the rest of you. So help us by buying the t-shirts.
Buying the t-shirts, sweatshirts, and I think there are tank tops, and then So for the one, someone said they were in Oz. So, hopefully they ship there. I don't know. I have to look and see, but I don't know how much the shipping would be.
Yeah. Yeah. But either way, support us. Get it out there.
Yeah. We love you guys. We will be back next Tuesday, and then I will be making a guest appearance on the Right Guys podcast. Boop, boop, boop. Just kidding.
Tomorrow or Friday, we haven't decided. Heck, we'll bring you on both days. I don't care. Let's go.
Let's go. I will not do any other podcast moving forward other than the Right Guys podcast or my own. That's just gonna happen because no comment.
Right, just drama. It's just drama, dog.
Drama, dog. Okay, guys, we love you. We thank you for tuning in. Bye for now.
See ya.